Hi, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, there's a lot of anxiety in Hollywood and fandoms about Donald Trump's 100% tariffs on films made outside of America, let alone foreign films. And I mean, I mentioned this in the video I did, but it's also going to affect TV production because TV basically does the same thing as America. It sends its productions to foreign countries to save money. We have just a whole industry of films made in Canada. We have, of course, all the Star Trek productions have been made in Canada. They used to be made on the Star Trek lot in Hollywood, but to save money, which just goes into the pockets of the 23, executive producers, you don't actually see the money they spend on Star Trek Discovery and Strange New Worlds. You don't actually see that on screen, like ever. Those films are like $2 million productions, really, when they're costing about 10. But how are they going to manage that in the future? Now the Side Trek guy, I think that's his name, was talking about Stargate. He just did a video about Stargate and how it appears to be going into production soon, or there's some plan. That's just been thrown into disarray because they're not. If they can't make the film where they plan to make the film for the money they plan to make the film, the series, whatever, it's not going to happen, and it's going to be something that's going to affect a lot of franchise shows, a lot of genre shows, a lot of science fiction TV, fantasy TV. They're very expensive, and the slightest little increase could, be outside of their affordability, and they lose their funding because, if you can't literally afford it, then you just can't make it. It just falls through. It's not like you just get more money from somewhere else. Sometimes you can, but sometimes you just can't. You can only get so much, or the people that are, funding you can only fund you so much. And if you can't find the money elsewhere and get another partner, it doesn't happen. We've seen that happen with films before. We've seen films virtually in production or in pre-production or just starting production lose funding from a company and they get shut down, don't finish. So he said, I just have to redo the videos I just made about the Stargate potential productions because this can affect them and what effect that could have on them. And looking at stuff like Star Trek, for example, that's all produced like, are we going to get a 5th season of Strange New Worlds? Not if Donald Trump had anything to do with it. Do we really care because it's a parody at this point? But I don't know if season 3 is going to be any good or 4 is going to be any good because they're already censoring the series. They're re-editing and reshooting parts of the series to make it less woke because Trump was already threatening to stop the Skydance merger. He's already suing CBS, and he was going to use his governmental influence to screw them around. So they ended up paying him out. So that sort of ended, but now we have this problem. It's like I said, part of me is like worried about those productions, and part of me is kind of like, maybe if it kills them, it's a good thing because they're not good Star Trek, they're not science fiction, and maybe if Paramount does end up going back to the drawing board and making things in-house at home, maybe we might actually get another production team because probably, Bad Robot can't work in Hollywood. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that till I'm talking about it right now. It's like a whole nother video. But yeah, so how is this going to affect sci-fi productions, fantasy productions, TV? That's like stuff's being produced all around the world, and it makes it affordable. If all this stuff has to be brought back to Hollywood and made in LA, are these productions going to fall through and just not happen? I'm guessing some of the bigger names, franchises owned by big studios like Stargate and Star Trek owned by like MGM and Paramount, they probably will find a way to fund them. So we might still get those shows, but they will be done differently, probably with different people. So that's going to screw up like Stargate, which is looks like it's close to being produced, I think, from what this guy's been saying recently. But something like Star Trek, damn it, this might actually be a good temporary thing for Star Trek in a way. If they can find the funding to make Star Trek in-house, they may actually start over again, which might be good for Star Trek. But they may also just say, we just can't afford this anymore and not even do it. And they may just end the productions in Canada, and then we just don't get any more Star Trek anymore. Same thing with Doctor Who, with Disney. They are putting a bunch of money on it. The talkies have already walked away from it. After seeing the ratings for the first few episodes of season 2, that the BBC is going to have to find new funding. they're going to have to do that outside of America, and they're probably not going to be able to market it to America anymore the way they were planning to. Not that it worked. Doctor Who's a little bit of a niche show, and I think they discovered that when Disney spent a bunch of money on it and tried to make it, blow up. It really didn't. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of what the new tariffs are going to do to film and television and genre TV shows in America now. And, I was totally against it when I started the video, and then by the end of it I'm like, oh, this could, if not save Star Trek, at least end the shame and stop the trash that's being produced for now. And I think Star Trek would be better to end now than keep doing that. If we can't have new, better stuff, at least stop making the stuff that's hurting the brand.